Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the fourth round of Norway chess, which is being held here in Stavanger. Now, as you guys know, I've had a pretty slow start. I've drawn all three of my classical games, and I've won 2 Armageddons, and I've lost one. Now, today in round 4, I'm playing against the Indian hero, Rameshbabu, Pragnanandhaa, who won a very, very impressive game yesterday in the classical portion against none other than the 5-time world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen. So today I'm playing against Prague. I have the double whites after starting with double blacks, and let's see how the game goes. All right, so the white pieces, I play d4, and now Prague plays knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and we have the classic Nimzo Indian defense. Here I play the move e3, Prague decides to castle in this position, and I realize the sound is off, so let me put the sound on so you guys can hear it. There we go. And I play this move, bishop to d2 here. Now, this is a variation that I prepared for the candidates tournament, actually in a rather funny twist of fate. One of my trainers in that tournament, Niels Grandelius from Sweden, he actually had this position today in a very topical game against another Indian super talent, Nihal Sarin, in the French Team Championship. So, bishop d2 is something that I prepared for the candidates, and today I get to use this line. Prague plays c5 here. Nihal played rook e8 in that game, by the way, in case I didn't mention it. But Prague goes c5. Here I play a3, takes, knight e4, and this move knight to e2. And now we get this move b6 from Prague. Now, this is a line that I myself have actually played from the black side against none other than Magnus Carlsen. So I have a lot of experience having played it from the black side, but today I'm playing it from the white side. So here I decide to play this move d5. Prague goes bishop a6, and now I play the move b3, guarding the pawn on c4. Prague plays b5, and now I play this move queen c2, targeting the knight on e4. Prague trades on d5, takes on c3, and now he plays this move d6. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that up to this point, all my moves are coming in fast and furious. Now, this is because this is still my preparation. So I play knight g3. Prague plays knight d7 here, and I play the move bishop e2, and here he goes knight f6, targeting the pawn on d5. I play queen d2, he goes rook e8, and now I play this move f3 here, trying to create the classic connect 5 with the move e4. Prague goes queen b6, and I go e4. You'll notice that I have the chain of 4 pawns and the big white center, and the connect 5 as well. So after e4, the position is very, very tricky here. Now, this was still my preparation, I might point out. I looked at a couple of moves like c4 here, or knight to d7 as well, but Prague ultimately plays this move bishop c8. Now, you'll also notice that at this point, I'm up nearly 40 minutes on the clock here. Prague has used quite a bit of time, and up to this point, I'm still in my prep, but now I have to think. Now, in this position, I decided to play this move a4 relatively quickly, and the reason I played this move is that I suspected it wasn't the absolute best move, but after the natural-looking castles, I thought black could go bishop to d7. Let's say I go king h1, and now black can play a5, trying to play either a4 or b4, and I didn't really see where my play is on the king side here. I can never go f4, because then I hang the juicer on e4. If I can't play f4, I mean, maybe I can go for bishop d3 at some point, but even rook c8 with c4, and if f4, c4 comes, for example, takes bishop c2. I feel like after c3 here, black has his passed pawn, an open b file, access for the bishop, and there's always pressure on the central pawns from the knight on f6. So I didn't really like any of this, and that's why I decided to play a4 relatively quickly. Now, a4 is a move that a modern-day Hikaru would play, but if you were to go back to, say, 2019 or 2018, this is not a move that I probably would have played, and the reason that I say that is because it's a move that I played quickly, simply because I didn't like that idea with a5, a4, and I didn't want to burn a lot of time worrying about what could go right, what could go wrong. I just wanted to play relatively quickly and on intuition. So this is a move that a 2024 Hikaru can play, but in 2018 or 2019, this is not a move that I would have ever played in the position. Nonetheless, let's keep going. So I play a4. Prague plays bishop d7, and this move really caught me off guard. Now, this move is a mistake, but I was really surprised by this because I expected Prague to probably trade the pawns on a4 and then play something like rook b8 to try and use the open b file here, or even bishop to d7 followed by rook b8 as he also targets the pawn on a4. Instead, Prague played this move bishop d7, and I think that when Prague played this move, he was feeling a lot of pressure because of the clock situation. Again, Prague is down already 30 plus minutes, and one thing that I learned from playing against Prague in the World Cup is that Prague is a guy who likes to come with a surprise to the board. He likes to trick his opponent. He really feels good when he can surprise him early and he gets in his zone. So he thought he was surprising me with this opening choice, playing the c5 b6 stuff, but then he walked into my surprise, which is my preparation, and I think because of that, he was simply a little bit uneasy, and he was trying to move a little bit quicker, which is why he played the move bishop d7. So here I take on b5, he takes back, and now I trade the bishops and I go knight to f5. Now, those of you guys who've watched my videos in the past, you'll of course have heard me say this many times. There's a famous saying from the great world chess champion, Gary Chess, also known as Gary Kasparov, where he's made the statement that a knight on f5 is worth at least one pawn if it cannot be kicked away right away. So I go knight f5 in the spirit of Gary Kimovich himself, and now Pragg plays the move knight takes e4. Now, what's really confusing about this whole situation here is that for Pragg, I don't really know what he thought he had. Now, I know he went to confessional, he spoke about it during the game. I'm not sure what he said or didn't say, but the problem here is that if you don't have a sack that works, like in the game with knight takes e4 or rook takes e4, you're simply in a lot of trouble here. Now, the computer will say after queen b6, black is fine, so I guess after queen g5, you can go g6, takes, and apparently black is okay here, even though the king is wide open on g8. A little bit surprising, frankly, because I thought after takes, I should just be better here. Something like queen b4, maybe king, no, king f2, I guess he has check and rook e5, and black is okay here. But it just felt like there should be something for white. So Pragg here ends up deciding to sacrifice the knight on e4, and this is a move that I expected. I myself spoke about the game during it, and I said that I felt that here if Pragg didn't sack something or I wasn't missing a tactic, that already it was very likely that I was going to get a great position and or win the game. So Pragg sacks the knight on e4. Worth pointing out, rook takes doesn't work, by the way, because if he sacks the rook, I takes, and here I can go queen to a5, queen to d3, hoping to get rook e8 in, but I play rook d1, kicking the queen away. Knight covers a square, pawn covers, no squares on the third rank, and once black plays queen takes pawn, I castle the king, and I win the game as I have an extra tower on d1. So, Pragg sacks the horse, I take, king f2, and now he plays the move rook e5. Now here I'm up 40 minutes on the clock, and I used about 50 minutes before playing or maybe 40 minutes before playing my next move. Now my initial instinct here is what I played in the game, which was knight takes d6, and the line that occurs in the game is what I calculated within the first 5 minutes in this position. But then I started spending time, because one thing you like to do is if you have one good move is you look at the other possible moves, what we call candidate moves, and you try to see if there's something better. Now, one of the moves that I really came close to playing was knight to h4. And the reason I came close to playing this move is because now, if black takes on b3, I can go knight to f3. The knight protects his king on f2 here. And after rook d5, queen e2, I thought I was a lot better. As their ideas, like let's just say queen b7, for example. Here I can go queen to e4, and suddenly there's a massive pin. Their ideas like rook b1 or rook d1, and I thought I was much better. Now, of course, the computer laughs in my face here, and it says that after queen e2, black can play the very quiet move h6, creating the lift for the king, so there are no ice skaters on the back rank, and white is only marginally better. Another move, which is actually the top move for the computer, is this move g4. Now, I very briefly considered this, but I thought either c4 or even queen takes b3 here, and I just didn't really see why I should be better. Now, the irony, of course, is that after queen b3 and rook e1, white is close to winning here because of this knife on f5, which is supported by the pawn, and ideas like queen g5 going hunting towards the black king. Again, very easy to see in retrospect, but during the game, very hard to play, and also very hard to play because I knew I had knight d6, which was good. I also had knight h4, which I thought was good. Even knight to g3 here, queen to b6 here, and rook e1, I thought was also potentially good for me as well. But at the end of the day, after seeing all these lines, I thought that when I played knight takes pawn, it would lead to the position in the game, which is a technical endgame where I think that I should always be winning. So I take the juicer. Pragg goes queen b6. Now, Pragg actually missed the line here. He thought that I couldn't take the pawn because after queen b6 and knight c4, forking the queen and the rook, he played check, king g1, and this moved rook to e2, creating the classic fossil or the discovery towards the rook on a1. Now, what Pragg saw here, and he mentioned this in the confessional booth during the game, is he probably saw queen takes rook, queen f1, check, block, and the game ends by repetition. So, Pragg thought that I couldn't go for this, but then unfortunately for Pragg, as he realized while I was thinking on knight takes d6, is that after rook e2, I have this nice move, rook to f1 here, targeting the queen on f6 because my knight guards my queen on d2. Pragg has to take the queen, I take his queen, and now he takes the pawn on d5, and I go rook to f3 here, rook d1, rook f1, rook d3, and now the move knight to a5. Now, as I mentioned, when I calculated knight takes d6, I saw this position, and ultimately the reason I went for this variation is because in my mind, I knew here that there's a good chance that I can win one of these pawns, the C or A pawns. I saw that black doesn't have a way to trade off this B3 pawn right away. But even beyond that, I also knew in my mind that if I get some endgame, just to illustrate the point, I'm just going to make some random moves here, something like, how do I set this up? I'm just going to set this up here. Even if we get to some endgame like this, for example, where I have a rook, two rooks, a knight, and two pawns, or actually, let's just say we get a trade, for example, something like this. I always knew this endgame with the rook, knight, and two pawns versus the rook and three pawns should be a technical win. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by a technical win is that with perfect play, I do believe that I should win this. Now, can I play it perfectly? Who knows? I'm not Stockfish. But if I play it perfectly, it will be a winning endgame. So from that standpoint, that's why I went into this, because I knew technically I should always win this game. And if I can't, well, that's my own fault. I suck at chess. So after knight a5, Prag goes rook d2. I play h4 here, trying to move the king or activate my rook with rook to h3. Prag goes rook a2, I play knight c4, and now he goes a5. Now, as soon as Prag played this move, I blitzed out this move, rook h3, after about a minute, and as soon as I played this move, I realized that, I think I just missed an easy win in this position. Now, the move that I should have played here after a5 was the move rook f2. Now, I think in my mind when he played a5, I sort of thought he had played rook b8, and then we get the position with rook h3, a5 like in the game. But at least here, I have to reach this position, whereas in the game, I have an alternative. Now, that alternative is after a5, I have rook to f2 here. If black trades the rooks and goes a4, I can go rook to a1, winning the pawn on a4. If he plays something like rook b8, I can take, rook b5, rook a1, and now I very simply walk my king all the way over, eat the c pawn, and push p up the board on the b file, and I win the game without any drama whatsoever. If black plays rook to a1 check after king h2, there simply are no squares available for the rook to retreat here. And so he has to trade on h1, and now we reach the same thing where after f6 and rook to a2, again, I'm going to win this a5 pawn, bring the king all the way over, and I should win this without any issues whatsoever. But instead, I play rook h3. Now, if I had not seen rook f2, I think it would have been much better, because in my mind, I realized I had missed this, which meant that I had to continue with the game, knowing that I had missed what I perceived to be an easy win. We get a4, I play knight b6, rook b8, I take, and now Prag finds this very nifty idea with rook to c2. Now, if black were to go c4 here, I can play knight c3, attacking the rook, and after rook c2 takes, for example, rook b3 here, I simply can go rook to e3, king f8, and now let's move knight to d1, guarding the rook, rook f4, rook f3, rook e1, bunch of ideas here, and I should be winning. But Prag finds this move rook to c2, and now I play rook f4, and he goes h5. Now, the problem for me here is that I have the classic knight on the rim, which is kind of dim, but more importantly, I can't really activate this knight. Now, I always have the option to play rook c4 and trade the rooks, but after rook b4, knight c5, rook c4, we reach the classic endgame with the rook, knight, and 2 versus the rook and 3 pawns. So here I play rook d3, he goes f6, rook e4. I'm not really going to go in depth on the next couple of moves. We're just simply going to rush through it. I try to improve my position here, make some moves, before finally I end up in the situation where I decide to go rook c4. Now, I know I blitzed through those last 15 or so moves, but I was trying to improve my position before finally deciding that I have nothing better than to go into this endgame. Now, the most important thing about this endgame here is that once we reach this position is that I do not trade off all the pawns. If we ever get a situation like this, for example, where I have a rook and a knight versus a rook, this is a theoretical draw. It is not possible to win this position if your opponent plays correctly, even though you have an extra horse. So after rook c4, I go knight e6, and here Prag plays this move g5. Now, one other thing that I failed to mention so far in this recap is that I actually did not realize the time control. I thought that after move 40, we got an extra 15 or 20 minutes or something. But after move 40, there's no added time. You simply get an increment of 10 seconds per move. Now, this also contributed a lot in terms of me getting low on time, because I thought that when I ran out of time, I would get an extra 15 minutes. At some point, I finally asked just to make sure that I wasn't crazy, and then they told me that, no, you don't get any more time, and that also didn't help matters. So I'm down to 40 seconds here, but luckily in this position, it's much harder for my opponent to play than for me, because all I'm trying to do is not lose both of these pawns, and I'm trying to put the knight on f4 and go after these pawns on the king side. Now, Prag played g5 here, which is the best move according to the computer, but it's not the move that I thought he should have played. I thought he should have played rook c6 first, because now if I go knight f4, g5, probably I still can reroute the knight to e3 and f5, but I don't get the active rook on the 6th rank. I can't create the kebab and the pin. Instead, Prag plays g5. Now I go rook d5, and already here it's very tricky, because black does not want to move this pawn, but he doesn't really have a choice, as I'm threatening to simply capture it with the knight, the pawn, or the rook. So Prag trades, and now he goes king g6. Here I play knight to d4 here, and the idea is simple. What I really would love to do down the road is get some position like this where I can check the king and win this pawn on h5. So Prag plays rook c3, I go king g2, and now he plays this move rook to d3, and I find the very nice move knight to f5. Already here, if I don't have knight to f5, the game will end in a draw, I think. Or maybe I can still go king f2 followed by knight f5. But the point is, if I move my knight to e2, which is the more natural move, after takes, check, king f5 takes, king g4, it's uh-oh spaghetti time. Black is capturing the pawn and drawing the game. So I go knight f5. Prag cannot take the rook here, because now I check, and after takes, king e6 check, king f5, I go king to f3 here, stopping the king from entering, and after king e5 takes, f5, knight f4, followed by h5, the knight guards the pawn. Eventually, I'm going to walk the king over, and I'm going to win the game. So Prag plays rook a3, I go knight to g3 here, attacking this pawn on h5, and here Prag plays rook a2. I go king f3, check, king f4, and now he checks, I block, and he goes rook to a1, and here I play the move rook to d6, trying to put pressure on the pawn on f6. Prag goes rook f1, I go king to e3, and he plays the move rook f5. Here I go rook c6, rook f1, rook a6, rook f5, and now I play the move rook a1. Now again, keep in mind we're getting an increment. I'm still down over 2 minutes on the clock here, so I'm trying to play a couple of waiting moves and then come up with a plan down the road. So I go rook a1, Prag plays rook e5, I play king d4 here, and now he plays the move rook to e6, and I'm able to go rook to f1. If black ever pushes his pawn, the position becomes very close to loss. So after knight g3, rook f6, now I can go knight to e2 and knight f4, creating the blockade, and black loses the game. The reason this is so important is because if I ever try to set it up, and I'm just going to illustrate one thing for you guys, if I ever try to go knight f4 with the pawn on f6 here, black can always try to walk the king up to g4, which is why if the pawn ever gets to f5, there's no entry for the king, and now it's just a simple win. So Prag goes rook a6, I play knight c3 here, stopping black from playing rook a4 and winning the pawn, and also intending to go knight d5 or knight e4 on the next turn. Prag plays rook a3, I go rook to f4 first, and now I get rook a6, and I play the move knight d5, because if black checks here, I can go king to e3, and the rook will stop black from capturing, and after check, I'm just going to start walking this king all the way back towards g3, and eventually what's going to happen is we're going to reach some position like this, where I go check, king h6, and now I go rook d3 followed by rook to d5, winning the pawn on h5 and the game, as this king cannot enter via g6 and f5. Prag plays rook e6, rook e4, rook d6. I waste a couple more moves, and now I play this move king d3. Prag goes king f7, and this is actually a mistake. He probably still should have played rook a6, trying to keep the square available for the king, but instead he plays king f7, and now I go rook to a4, and the game is effectively lost, because you can't go king g6 due to the fork with knight f4, and after rook to e5, for example, I can go knight f4 here. The king is boxed. There's no way to get to the f5 square, as this knight covers the two critical squares on g6 and e6. And now a simple line just to illustrate is to go rook d4, followed by rook to d5 here, winning the pawn on h5. Black trades and goes king e6. I go king here, f5, king here, f4, and now a very important move, the only winning move, is to go king e4. Not takes, because then king f5, g4 would be a draw. Here, f3, check, king here, and now I take the pawn. I'm going to win the pawn on h5 and the game as well. So we get rook d6, I go king e4, rook e6, king f3, we get rook e5. Now I play rook a7 check, Prag goes king g6, knight to f4, and here he plays the move king f5, which loses on the spot, but even king h6 would have lost, because here I can go for the move rook to f7. If f5, I check, and now I take the pawn, king h7, knight f4, and this is winning. And here, if black plays rook f5, I can play this move king g3, and it looks like a stalemate situation because black can't move the king anywhere, but the problem is the rook can still move, and when the rook moves away, I take the pawn, I simply go check, followed by rook g5, winning the pawn on h5 and the game once again. Prag instead plays king f5, now I go rook to h7, and the game is over here because if black doesn't sack the rook with rook to e3 and just play on down a rook, he's getting mated on the next turn. Any other square you move the rook to, say e4, allows rook h5, and it's simply checkmate as the king has no squares available. Same thing for rook e8. All the squares are covered by the king, the knight, and the rook, so black loses the game. So after I play rook to h7, Pragnanandhaa, ha ha ha, resigns the game. I get a very, very critical win in the 4th round with the white pieces. This means that I'm actually the current tournament leader because there were 3 decisive games today. Alireza Firouzja beat Ding Liren with the white pieces, and Magnus Carlsen. It felt like it was getting really close whether he'd be able to hold the #1 spot in the world, but he has a resounding victory with the black pieces against Fabiano Caruana and a Gucci piano. So he wins as well. So both the 2 players, Fabiano and Prag, who are ahead of me, lose today. I get a win in Classical, and I'm the current tournament leader after 4 rounds. Now, tomorrow will be a rest day. There will be no games, so I'll probably go to the Pulpit Rock, go do some stuff here in Stavanger, try to relax a little bit and sort of shake off everything after today's very difficult game. But when all is said and done, I do get a big win today with the white pieces in the classical portion. I'm the current tournament leader at the break point. We have a rest day tomorrow, so it's all very, very Gucci thus far. So, on that note, you guys, it's quite late here in Norway. The games go long. I got to go eat some dinner and do some other stuff. So, I'm going to be calling for right now. Once again, if you guys are not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back after tomorrow on Saturday with the 5th round when I play against the current world chess champion, Ding Liren from China. See you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye.